Creativity and community are absolutely vital in challenging times. Welcome to Syncreate, a show where we explore the intersections between creativity, psychology, and spirituality. We believe everyone has the capacity to create. Our goal is to demystify the process and expand the boundaries of what it means to be creative. We talk with visionaries and change makers and everyday creatives working in a wide range of fields and media, from the arts to science, technology, and business. We aim to illuminate the creative process from imagination to innovation and everything in between. I'm Melinda Rothaus, and I help individuals and organizations bring their dreams and visions to life. At Syncreate, we're here to support your creative endeavors. So if you have an idea for a project or a new venture, anything from a creative work to an entrepreneurial idea, and you're not quite sure how to get it off the ground, find us at syncreate.org. Our book, also called Syncreate, walks you through the stages of the creative process so you can take action on your goals. And the book is also now available in audiobook format, narrated by Charlotte and me, the co-authors. We also offer resources, creative process tools, and coaching to help bring your work to the world, including one-on-one coaching and a monthly creativity coaching group that meets on the fourth Sunday of each month. So check out the website for more details. We'd love to hear from you as well. Love to hear your feedback on the show. If you have ideas for topics or guests you'd like us to cover, drop us a line at info@syncreate.org. So my special guest today is Dreux Carpenter. He's a multi-creative and communications professional. He's a graphic designer, writer, and he also offers proofreading and editing services. He holds both Masters and MFA degrees in writing and consciousness, one from the New College of California and the other from the California Institute of Integral Studies. He served on the board of the Writers League of Texas for several years. And he also happens to be married to Charlotte Gullick, my Syncreate business partner, co-founder, co-author of the book, and podcast co-host for our Creative Spark series. So Dreux designed our Syncreate logo, which you see in the background here of the show, as well as our book cover and illustrations. And he was instrumental in the development of Syncreate as a whole, which you'll hear a little more about during the episode, along with John Best. So delighted to have Dreux on the show today. Dreux, welcome. It's so wonderful to finally have you on the show as a guest.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for asking me. It's
Yeah.
good to be on your show. I've seen several episodes, and it's cool.
Yeah. Well, you've been so instrumental in our Syncreate process over the years. We
Right.
collaborated initially in developing all the ideas that eventually went into the book, and you've designed, our logo, the book cover, the illustrations. You're a wonderful sounding board with the book in general. So, and you've just, you've always kind of been there with Charlotte, kind of behind the scenes of the podcast as well.
hmm
So,
Yeah, yeah. It's I mean, the whole Syncreate thing has been really cool. Just encouraging people to and get in touch with their creativity is. It's been fun to be part of the process.
yeah. Yeah. So, I've been wanting to have you on the show for a long time, but here we are. So, I'm glad that we're making this happen now. And I love that you kind of proposed. We were talking about, well, like, what could we talk about today? Of so many things, right? You're a multi-creative and you do all kinds of cool stuff. But you kind of brought up the idea of self-doubt and mental health in
Yeah.
relation to creativity, which I think is such an important topic that, maybe doesn't get enough attention.
hmm
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think it's the self-doubt has ruled my creative process, my creative output, or has limited it and made it a painful process for me. And so yeah, it's um it's funny. I have this creative urge, and then when it comes time to create, I freeze, you know?
Yeah.
And so then I get discouraged. I say, okay, forget this. I don't need to create anything anymore. I quit. But then the urge comes back, and I'm like, let me try. And so it's, uh, the mind gets into patterns where,
Right.
and I think over the years, I've just scared myself out of creating. The beginning of the process is too frightening because there's too much that could go wrong, be misinterpreted, or you could be judged for not being as good as people think you should be, or so. I mean, all of these questions keep running through my mind, and what it ends up doing is keeping me from doing anything. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, self doubt, and I mean, ironically, like you said, I've been working doing the Syncreate stuff. I've been part of this encouraging people to pursue their creativity, and I mean, I've talked to friends who are stuck, and I've helped talk them through the process, and I can explain different methodologies. But when it comes to me, I am still managing to just sort of freeze in the moment. And yeah, it's very interesting to observe myself being unable to follow my own good advice.
Yeah, right. It's kind of like that phrase, physician, heal thyself, right? It's so much
Yeah.
easier sometimes to like have perspective on other people's situations. But I really appreciate your, openness and vulnerability and sharing that because I think it's something that so many people can actually relate with, but we just don't necessarily talk about it that much. I
Mhm.
mean, sometimes we talk about the inner critic and things like that, but like, self-doubt, we all deal with it, to some extent. And I think it's a very real aspect of any creative process. It's almost inevitable that that's gonna come into the equation.
I agree. I mean, not knowing, that uncertainty is, I mean, it's the ground from which you start, because if you were certain at the beginning, there's no need to pursue the thing.
Right.
But I think there's something that often people, and I think, we understand neurodivergence much better now than we did when I was
Yes.
18, 20, in
Sure.
college studying art. And we understand mental health, depression, anxiety, all of these things where the mind, in trying to keep itself safe, is actually harming itself from growth, you know.
Yes.
And so one thing I've been doing late recently is, in an attempt to um, get ahead of that self-doubt
Uh-huh.
and that judgment of I'm not where I should be, I'm not producing the quality that I should. I decided, um, one thing to try is to basically take it back to the fundamentals,
Mm.
and by that I mean, like with kids, um, they do is create because
Yes.
they're just making sense and making order and making noise and making chaos, but it's this expression. And so yeah, recently I've been just finding materials. There's an old bag of concrete in the garage that I have. It's a bag of sand and bamboo running rampant. And so I've cut down some bamboo, and I'm just like, I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I'm doing something, as I'm doing it, and I'm trying to allow myself not to have a plan,
Yep.
not to, I I'm not reading instructions on how to mix concrete. It's
Right.
the total, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm having discovery. So trying to, like, get back to the origins of wonder, where you don't know anything and
Yes.
all your mind is doing is going, "What if? What if I do this?
Yeah.
What if I do that?" And when the stakes are low, like, who cares if I waste an entire bag of concrete? I make this thing and it crumbles to dust. Who cares? You
Right.
know? but I've learned or I've enjoyed at the very least.
Exactly. And no, I think like so many things about what you just said, like wonder is such an important part of the creative process. I was just talking about this with a guest in another episode recently. And, having that childlike curiosity and openness and exploration. And, somehow as we get older and older, that seems to seep away for a variety of reasons. But also this like experimentation, like, trying out a completely different medium or working with materials you've never worked with before. And like that permission to just be a beginner and
Yeah.
not know.
Well, there's a word that I've been using in my mind and lately, ignorance. It has this very negative connotation.
Right.
But being a language person too, I mean, the basic meaning of the word ignorance is just lack of knowledge, you
Right.
know? And I was thinking today, I was like, water does not judge a glass for being empty.
Right.
You fill the glass. It's simply a state. And so if we don't know anything, it's nothing to be ashamed of. Any new information we get, any new knowledge that we acquire is, it's filling the glass. And so I think, yeah, that like kids, when babies are born, everything is brand new. There's no context. They have to
Right.
make meaning,
Yeah.
and so I think that's part of what I'm trying to do with myself is sort of it, decontextualize myself from myself and just engage with materials and just I don't know, being ignorant and allowing myself to be filled. Um, because I mean the corollary of like ignorance is lack of knowledge, innocence is lack of experience.
Yes.
There's no judgment there. It's simply, two states and the space between them.
Exactly. And actually, from a Buddhist point of view, the not knowing is really important. Like, there's that phrase from Suzuki Roshi, like, in the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the expert's mind, there's only a few. And that speaks to like how we narrow and specialize and focus in our careers
Yeah,
or whatever. But then we're also cutting ourselves off from a
yeah,
lot of possibilities. There's also a Buddhist quote that you can't fill a glass that's already full. If you
mhm,
think you know everything, then it's hard to bring anything else in.
exactly, exactly.
So,
Um, yeah, I'm trying to embrace uh, not knowing, being comfortable with not knowing, and I
yes.
think for like growing up, I had 3 brothers, and all of us were born within 5, 6 years, so
Yeah.
I mean, real close in
Yes.
age, which means there's competition for attention. There's competition for praise. There's, how do I compare to my older brother? And you're 3 years younger than this brother, and he's an amazing athlete, and you're 3 years younger. Of course, he's better. And
Right.
so, but eh, but I realized what one of my habits with growing up with three brothers who had um, incredible gifts in various different directions. um, I was constantly trying to find something that no one else was doing, so I
Right.
wouldn't have to compete.
Yeah.
Um, but then what that means is I'm making my choices based on I'm limiting myself because I don't want that competition, that scrutiny, that judgment, that comparison. Because I think that's where creativity gets stifled, which I think happened to me.
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, that judgment, expecting judgment from others, and judging others. I mean, I've had my periods of there's a comfort in avoiding one's own art
Right.
and still critiquing the art of others.
Right.
You know,
Exactly.
it's a very comfortable space to go up to a painting and go, "Oh man, that sucks. I could do better." Well, sure, maybe you could, but you haven't,
Right.
or you don't. So, but I think that's in my judging others, I imagine that judgment turned on me, and that's another thing that kept me frozen is, well, I'm making all these snide comments about other people and their sincere endeavors, and yet uh, uh, I'm I'm afraid to even present anything to someone because
Yeah.
maybe they'll think that of me.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
very fragile.
Aw.
creative-
Well, I mean, I know you do many creative things. You're a graphic designer, you're a writer, among many other things. I know you were on the board of the Writers League of Texas, and in that capacity, you served as I guess, a judge, you could say, for different writing contests and things like that. So, like, I don't know, what's a piece of advice that you might have given to someone else struggling with these things that maybe you could use for yourself now?
That's a good question. I mean, if there are people who, like I said, I have this creative urge, but I keep running from it, but it keeps calling me back.
Yes.
And so I need to pay attention to it the right way in order to
Yeah.
calm it down. And so if there are people who, I mean, obviously, we're all creative, we're all creators. Um, but there are some of us who want to express our experience on the planet and make a physical artifact of this, or
Yes.
or a song or something that says this is my connection to the my time on this planet.
Mhm.
And I think for those who keep being thwarted by themselves, um the, you need to find a way to exist out of your own context, like I said before.
Yeah.
And it's taken years. I mean, I've been in therapy. I've done this, I've done that. And it's only recently that I'm kind of like sort of coming to this calmer place within me without
Mhm.
the judgment without the expectation that, I mean, because also I'm not as young as I used to be.
I
And so
guess
you do
none of
the,
us are.
yeah, right. And so you do the calculation. If what body of work do I leave behind?
Yeah.
And, if I could have spent the last 20, 30 years failing and building, or, not success and failure, but trial and error, just learning,
Yes.
embracing the holes in my knowledge, but as they build to other things, then there would be less pressure now to actually
Sure.
put something out. But I would say, look, y- you want to create and you've had these struggles in the past. Um, do do it for yourself. Find a space, find a place, and don't know. Embrace the ignorance and step into the ignorance.
Yeah.
I think that is kind of uh, to me that's the greatest thing. That sense of wonder of, wow, this is something I know nothing about. So everything is this brand new something.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And you mentioned the word failure, which I think sometimes we're, like, afraid to say that word out loud or
Mhm.
whatever, but, I just came from this creativity conference in Oregon, and in the context of creativity studies, people are always talking about failure and how important failure is and how necessary and vital it is actually to the creative process. We have to be willing to fail, willing to take risks, willing to have it not work out. And then we learn and grow and, you know, pick ourselves up, dust
Yeah.
ourselves off, and carry on.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I think that's kind of what separates, like, the arts from the science. I mean, it's all the same universe, but, with science, with math, there is a right, it's this convergence to a correct
Yes.
answer.
Right.
And with the arts, there are infinite answers to each question you can ask. They can branch off to various things. So the failure of the artistic pursuit is, I mean, it's not a defeat. it's a discovery of, oh, this isn't what I'm trying to do. This isn't what I'm expecting or what I've learned something and now I know I can go somewhere else. So
Mhm.
um, it's a conclusion of sorts, but it's 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 more a door than a wall. You know,
Yes.
it's a time you stop and you go, okay, this is wrong, but there's another space.
Yeah, and it strikes me that, like, in your example of working with concrete and, like, you didn't read the instructions and learn how to mix concrete, you're just playing around, and, sometimes if we follow the directions and we try to learn and master something and do it the right way, maybe you'll discover something
Hmm.
about properties of concrete or ways of working with concrete in a
Yeah.
creative way that no one's ever done before, precisely because you weren't following the known path, right?
You approach it from, yeah, but I mean, there's so much to be said for, I mean, people have been using concrete for millennia,
Sure.
and so they know what they're doing. They know what
Yeah.
so it would behoove me to learn things, but the learning the facts right now is not exactly what I'm after. It's the learning is, gets a little woo-woo, but I don't wanna learn the facts right now. I wanna learn the truth of
Yes.
of the thing, you
Through
know?
experience, right? Rather than
Yeah.
how someone else says you should do it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And I want to kind of come back to this, like we've talked a lot about self-doubt and working with self-doubt and things like that, but also, the other piece of this that we kind of touched on in the beginning is mental health. And, in this podcast, we're trying to dispel some of the stereotypes around creativity, like the myth of the tortured artist, or that,
Mhm,
creative people tend to be depressive or addicts or whatever. And, certainly there's stereotypes. And sometimes the stereotypes have some truth to them, because as much as that it doesn't have to be that way, the reality is that a lot of highly creative people are also highly intelligent, and their brains are often working overtime, and that can lead to anxiety and self-doubt and mental health issues. And then of course we all have traumas of one form or another, and people who are highly creative often find ways of working creatively with their trauma or through their trauma, or use their creative work as a way to process what's happened to them. And so I think, on some level, the mental health struggles are very real.
mhm, and, that is, part of I live in my head too much.
Yeah.
There have been points in my life where I'm like, "If I could exist as simply a consciousness and have no body, that would be awesome." I don't
Right.
know where to put myself in space when I'm around people. I don't know how to be a physical being,
Right.
and my mind is always questioning itself. So, um, that and, so I think I've not in the creative stuff I've done, I've not really worked in three-dimensional, like sculptural or
Mhm.
textural or things. It's, posters and writing, and so I think that was sort of a way from, I was trying to, get out of my head and into my body, my hands, and
Uh-huh. Yes.
working with textures, which, to sort of stimulate the parts of my brain that I don't usually stimulate, and
Yeah.
which is, again, it's trying to, I mean, because I've sort of the wagon paths of my brain,
Yeah.
the ruts are really deep to go from
Yes.
stress to panic to anxiety. So, to sort of, shortcut that, I g I give it different input that it's not used to. It doesn't I'm not used to working with, gritty sand and cement and making a shape rather than, you know, this two-dimensional thing. Um, I I think with mental health, I mean, For me, the patterns that I've created in my mind, are patterns that may have served me,
Yeah,
but are really hamstringing me now.
sure.
Uh, so, uh, trying to find trying to find ways to engage, uh, like, to get ahead of my own thinking,
Yeah.
uh, and if I can do that enough, then simply the acting is the second nature thing. Like, you're a musician, you sing, you play instruments, and so, like, music can come to you and you can, like, interact with it because you've lived with it, that long, and that's kind of how I'm trying to engage with different types of creativity now, is just to get them to to get my relationship with it ahead of my thinking about it.
Yes. And I think you mentioned like sort of physicality and embodiment. And I think, playing music is a great example of that. And I find I'm not a big, I don't do a ton of visual art, but sometimes when I've just played with drawing or whatever, that can be a way just because it's a manual kind
Yeah.
of thing or painting. But also, I used to do stained glass and mosaics,
Mm,
and it was just
mhm,
something I picked up that I didn't have any prior experience with. It was at a time in my life when I was kind of um, wandering in the desert, you might say, and I just thought, well, this is something that's always fascinated me. I'm just going to take a class, and I learned it, and I got really, really into it. And part of the reason was the physicality of like cutting glass and grinding the edges and
mhm,
putting it together and using the chemicals and the soldering iron and there's all these
right,
different steps and they're all manual. And I would get into like a flow state with
mhm,
that, where I would like enter into a different part of my brain and hours would go by
mhm,
and I wouldn't even realize it. And I
yeah,
think that is a good way. We talk a lot and you mentioned this like convergent and divergent thinking and our brains have a tendency to want to plan and overthink things and project into the future. And sometimes if we can get into that more embodied state where we're physically engaged, some
mhm,
of that can quiet down a little bit.
yeah, I agree,
Yeah.
I agree,
Yeah.
mhm.
Totally. Well, so I'm curious, do you have any other projects in the works that you're kind of excited about right now or
Uh, it's there's a lot of, I'm doing a lot of just play and experimentation. Like I mentioned, we have bamboo outside of our house,
Yeah.
but it spreads quickly. So I've chopped some stuff down, and I have an interest in, um, like, what I call micro shelters.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
the tiny house movement. I'm thinking even smaller, 8 by 8 kind of little shelters. So I'm like,
Uh-huh.
can I build something again without knowing how to do anything? Can I build a shelter out of bamboo? And then, once I try my thing and fail, then I can learn, how do other people actually do it who know how to
Yeah,
do it?
right.
So, I mean, that's one thing. I bought this vintage, overhead projector, at an antique store a few weeks ago, and it works, and so I'm gonna do some, I think I've been drawing and painting in my life, but I think it's because I've been working too small. I need to work on a wall,
Oh, yeah,
you
yeah.
know, or like
Large
a meat size.
scale.
So, that's something I'm gonna be looking into in the next little while.
Like,
So,
so okay, I'm trying to imagine this. I love this idea of the antique projector. So you're gonna like use a projector to project something on the wall and
on the
then
wall.
play within
Yeah, so,
that
like, hanging
space?
canvas on the wall or a big piece of plywood, and, but transferring image, it's about image transfer, yeah,
Yeah.
so, again, just experimenting, so I have ideas for a pinhole camera kind of thing, so, I mean, I have ideas. I have
Yeah.
these things that I wanna pursue,
Yeah. Love
but,
that.
yeah, with no end or no intention in mind right now.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of one of the hallmarks of creative people. It's like that just getting ideas about like, well, what would happen if I got this projector and projected
Yeah.
it on the wall, and like, or what if I just take this bag of concrete and see what
Mhm.
happens, just always trying out different things and not being afraid to like just experiment with totally different media or ways of going about things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So I usually try to end each episode with, what we're calling a creativity pro tip, something that people can try out. And we've already talked about a few things on the show, but again, maybe, to somebody who is struggling with self-doubt around their creativity or mental health issues, what's something they could maybe try out and see if it helps them?
Uh, it, I'm a firm believer in sort of cross pollination of genres of media.
Yes. Yes.
And so, if you're creative, you're a painter traditionally, just get some clay and like Play-Doh and, do use a different thing in your brain, but not just like across the arts, but, if you're a painter, you know, study a concept in physics,
Yes.
and that on the surface has nothing to do with what you're doing. It's not art, it's science, it's this theoretical, it's this, um, but it tickles your brain in a way that you don't usually tickle your brain. Um,
Yes.
so I think keep finding ways to surprise yourself or to disrupt
Yes.
your expectations.
Yeah, I love that. Disrupt expectations. Yeah. And I mean, the field of creativity studies, there's so many stories of people who are working across domains or in different domains where one thing informed another thing. And I find that in my own life. It's like
Yeah.
if I'm working on a song or a piece of writing or whatever it is, the other things that are happening in my life speak to it in interesting ways. And that's kind of the essence of creativity, is making associations between
Yeah.
seemingly unrelated things.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
So,
making the brain go, "Oh, oh," each time there's something a little more surprising, there's something there that's fresh, little
yeah,
punch of ooh. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and just being open to curiosity and surprise, as you said. Love
yeah,
that. Awesome. Well, thanks, Drew. It's been such a pleasure to
yeah,
chat with
this is
you.
this is fun.
And if people do want to learn more about you and what you're up to, what's a good way for them to find you?
Wow, that, would be pretty difficult.
I know you have a
Yeah,
LinkedIn. Is that
I
something
do.
we
I
could
don't
mention?
use it a lot. I am on LinkedIn. I'm on different things, but I don't use them often. I check in here now and then. That's another thing I'm trying to come to terms with is my hermit-like
Yeah,
tendencies.
as with many creatives, understandable. But yeah,
So,
well, I
yeah.
know where to find you. So,
You do,
yeah.
absolutely. So people can contact you. You can call me and say, "Do you want this person to contact you?" No, I'm
Yeah. No, sometimes that's what people say,
yeah,
yeah, if they want to get in touch with me through you, that's fine. So, yeah, well, thank you so much. I really
my
appreciate it.
pleasure.
And I hope to see you in person sometime
Yeah,
soon.
I love that. Yeah.
All
Excellent.
right.
Thank you so much, Melinda. This is great.
Of course, my pleasure. Find and connect with us on YouTube and social media under Syncreate. If you enjoy the show, please subscribe and leave us a review. And again, we'd love to hear from you, so drop us a line at info@syncreate.org. We'd love to hear your feedback on the show, if you've tried out some of our pro tips and how that went for you, as well as topics you'd like us to cover and potential guests. We're recording today at Record ATX Studios in Austin, Texas, with Drew joining us from the Hudson Valley. The podcast is produced in collaboration with Mike Osborne at 14th Street Studios. Thanks so much for being with us, and see you next time.